and they basically say, we want to know why is there a parole and probation building connected to Martin Luther King School, and why is it that the only school that has that type of entity connected to it? We also noticed that the majority of the kids who came out of that school has landed in prisons and on parole and probation. So I think what the question is are you profiling our children so that they can be recipients of your justice system in your prison?
Well, let me touch on that issue. One of the areas I think we have a lot of work to do as a community is disproportionate discipline for our kids in our schools. And I'm not the only one that believes this, and actually Lorenzo Poe at the Portland Public School District is leading an effort to change that, because 10% of African American high school students in Portland have been expelled or suspended, and 2% of white students have. And that starts very early in those kids' academic career. And if you suspend a kid 2 or 3 times between kindergarten and 3rd grade, they're already on the wrong track in terms of school success. And I give Lorenzo and the Portland School District a lot of credit, because they've looked right straight at this problem, and they've written down the numbers of what's wrong now, and they've set some very ambitious goals about changing those numbers in the next year. Not 5 years, not 10 years, but starting right now. So this is a big issue about how we track people early. It's not a police issue per se, but after that kid's been suspended 2 or 3 times, the odds of that kid starting to encounter the police bureau are pretty high. So I believe getting upstream, as this question suggests, is a way for us to make a difference. I'm sorry. King School, I don't know. That's a county parole and probation facility. Maybe. Okay, Antoinette says they know.
Hey, James.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you in line now?
My name is Nick
Cool.
Caleb. I'm a teacher at Concordia University, and I'm a big supporter of Don't Shoot PDX. This might be a really naive question, but I'm just curious as to why citizens can't have direct oversight over police discipline. And if it's just a labor law question, then why isn't the city negotiating to allow for more direct oversight? And if the city was to posture in that way and actually to put forward some ideas for direct citizen oversight, including disciplining officers for the directives that you're talking about, maybe even firing officers if it's appropriate, citizens making a decision. If the city decided to go that way, would the police PPA oppose it? And if so, why?
Let me start. I believe it's my job as a police commissioner to carry out discipline for our officers. I believe it's the right of citizens through the process that we have to provide oversight of that discipline, and we do have that. So I think we've done a pretty good job of striking that balance. I'm accountable, but citizens are involved in the community police review process, the independent police review process that isn't part of my office. It's administered by the city auditor. So I think we've got a separation of powers there, where the city auditor runs the independent police review process. They look over the chief's shoulder and over my shoulder in terms of how that discipline is imposed. So not perfect, but considerable amount of citizen eyes on the work. I don't know of any cities in the United States where citizens who aren't given public authority, like I am as mayor, are allowed to fire public employees. I don't know if that exists anywhere in the United States. I can imagine that that would be very difficult to do, even if I thought it was a good idea. But I think it's a good idea for me to be accountable and for you to be able to look over my shoulder.
Right, and I'll let you answer because it's a totally different question. But one of the examples where in the last few years where this was immediately apparent to me, at least, was with Mark Kruger, who got to the point where, and people will know the name, I think, the Nazi cop. And what ended up happening is basically he was removed by the city and then reinstated, right? And the city couldn't do anything, and then we kind of like signed an agreement with them and all the rest. Wouldn't we be able to negotiate for oversight in the labor contract so that that stuff couldn't happen? And if we could, why would we oppose
And number one, Mark Cruz is a different union, that's a management union, which no longer exists for commanders and captains. And I think the mayor did that so he'd have more oversight over his command staff people in decision making. And again, that's part of the management labor agreement that has been there forever. And unless both parties saw a need to change it, there probably wouldn't be any change. and I don't know if there's a need to change it at this point in time. I wholeheartedly believe that even though we don't agree, we don't come down on the same decision, that the chief and the mayor should be the ones making the decision based on discipline and based on, termination, things like that. So, although we don't always agree, when it comes down to it, if we go to arbitration and we lose, we understand that's the final decision. When we go to arbitration and they lose, they understand that's the final decision for them.
But the mayor signed it without reading it.
And I wanted to say real quick, because I see a couple of my comrades in the line again, we need to give people a chance. This is the first time that we're doing this, but we have 6 months of dialogues. And in honor of Mike Brown, how we have been meeting since August, 4.5 hours, so you will get your chance. And we're not even done yet. Pretty soon we got lunch and we're gonna have some more Q&A. So let's give everybody an opportunity to get on the record. Hey, Paul.
Hi, my name is Paul Rowland. I'm a resident of Portland. 3 weeks ago, there was 2 police officers in New York who were killed, and after that, a number of police officials around the country
I'm so sorry.
made very strong statements, essentially blaming protesters for creating a climate in which those 2 officers were killed. And here in Portland, President Turner, you released a statement on December 22nd. Said, for months now, the media, politicians, and community activists have been vilifying the police. They call us murderers and racists. Now these same people who so quickly crucified the police are backpedaling. They're blaming a crazed gunman for the deplorable shooting. But it's their very words that fueled his anger and the anger of many Americans with unfounded accusations characterizing all police as brutal thugs. They've created a culture of hatred towards law enforcement nationwide. This can't go on. Now there's a lot to pick apart, and this actually was the reason why you had the conversation with Teresa and we had that meeting the day afterwards. And there's no really reason to go over again. I don't know if you thought some of these comments, but as a result of that meeting, I went and started doing some research on the history of police unions and their role in society. And essentially they play kind of a dual role. They basically, as all unions do, protect the working conditions, wages, benefits of their workers. But police play a very different role than other workers in this country. There's an article going around called The Origins of Police, which outlines the origins of the police in slave patrols and in basically putting down mob action during periods of social unrest and strikes and such. And if we see the role the police play during Occupy and continue to play in social unrest, even in these, the protests that have been going on as a result of police killings themselves, it's a very interesting dynamic. And I don't really have time to expand on that, but just want to say historian Sam Matrani said the police throughout the modern era use violence to deal with the social problems and accompany the development of wage labor economy. Anyway, this is a very deep question, and I wish I had more time to go into it, but I think there's a deeper conversation about all this that needs to be had.